They tried to stop us, said they couldn't contact Central because of all the noise, and that it was a miracle the message even reached Houston. Added that we should stick together in case these things came over. But these fools didn't understand that was precisely the point. We can't fight back these things unless we bring out the big guns, and I'm not even sure that any colony on Mars even has those. And if there's one colony that has a chance to fight back, it's Central Colony. You see, Central is where the upper Mars society lives. There are no regular families like mine, only the cream of the crop. It's, as you call it, the world government for us. This is where political figures, high-ranked officials, and the brains live. It's where all decisions concerning the Mars colonies happen, and where Houston sends most of the resources before they're being redistributed between colonies. If humanity on Mars had a chance of survival, the Central Colony was where it happened. So, even with their insistence to at least stay the night, we refueled and left. We also made sure to put on a few more layers on, because the drive to Central Colony would take at least 5 hours, and by the time we arrived, it would be night already, and Mars can get pretty damn cold at night. I'm not talking get a jacket cold. I'm talking if you aren't dressed enough, you die cold. Hopefully, we wouldn't lose a toe or two before reaching the Central Colony. Though, to be honest, between losing a couple of toes and risking an invasion, I preferred losing the toes. Losing my toes wouldn't prevent me flying back to Earth, though dying under the claws of the invader would. We packed enough fuel for the road, filled our water and oxygen tanks, and brought a couple of spares as well. We would probably have to stop to fuel the rover a little over half the way, but Mika made the calculation. We had enough of everything. It's safe to say that I would, and am, trusting him with my life. The guy has always been a genius since as far as I can remember. By the age of 8, he was already building robots. By age 9, some of his inventions were implemented permanently in the colony's systems. At age 17, he revisited the whole energy system with the geniuses of the Central Colony. He could live there. He had been offered to join them. He simply didn't want to leave his parents and friends behind. So, you can now understand why I trust him with everything I have. He's not like the rest of us. Remember how I said it was every man for himself when we were both running away? I would have left him there if it meant saving my life. I'm not proud to admit it, but him? He would have stopped and helped me. Mika was always thinking of others and how to improve life on Mars. That's probably why he was one of the only ones who didn't care whether he went to Earth or not. I admire him, but I also wouldn't want to be him in a life or death situation. Selfish as I might sound, you can't save anyone if you die. I'll protect my skin first, then I'll help others. And this is why we need to go to Central and fly to Earth, so we can warn them about what's coming. It makes no doubt in my mind that if these creatures attacked us here, they'd soon figure out there's another us, none too far in our solar system. Once we left the second colony, and Mika shoved the coordinates of the Central in the rover's directional system, I allowed myself to relax a little. I even put the rover on autopilot so that I could rest a bit more. My shoulders had been tense since the beginning of the day, and my back was starting to hurt like a bitch. I also realized I'd been clenching my teeth for hours, and that jaw pain was a thing. And as I sat there behind the wheel and stared outside aimlessly, Mika asked me the question no one wants to answer at a time like this. Hey, you okay? Of course. Of course I'm not fucking okay. I want to reply that so bad, but it's not like he doesn't know what my answer is. Does he want me to tell him I'm fine so he could focus on something else? Or does he want to play therapist on top of being my life savior? I'll take a few seconds before I settle on an answer. I'm alive. I don't think anyone could resume the situation better. I'm not good for sure, but I'm breathing. A privilege many lost today. I'm still alive, so I could still fight, and so is he. Mika replied a quick, same, and leaned back in a seat. And 5 hours in silence, in a self-driving rover. It's going to be long. However, neither of us had anything to talk about. I mean, we could probably talk about what we'd do once we reached the central colony, but both of us already knew. We would go to the official and higher-ups, say our story, request a transfer to Earth, and pray they would give it to us. Chances are that they won't, since we're really not top tier enough for that. In that scenario, our only chance would be to steal as many liquid hydrogen tanks as possible from them and go back to our colony with the hopes that our own rocket hadn't been destroyed. Even then, it would take at the very least 2 or 3 months to get to Earth. Our rocket was small, so it travels fast, but I wondered if it was faster than those aliens. What if they chased us? What if they followed us? Mika was probably thinking the same, and would self-sacrifice if I let him. Fortunately for him, I'm an egoist and I want to live. Earth can welcome us and fight them. You can't save anyone if you're dead, and if we die here, they won't know what's coming. So we have to do something. About halfway through our trip, the fuel tank starts flashing. We continue for about 20 minutes and then stop to refill. The sun is setting and the temperature is already pretty low. We have to get to Central Colony as soon as possible, and it takes another 2 hours at least to get there. And we hope to make it there before it becomes completely dark. By an unprecedented streak of luck, we managed it. And about an hour and a half into our trip, we finally see the lights on the horizon, and we know we're getting there. I could feel my eyes sting just thinking about the Central Colony. But my joy was of short duration, because the closer we got, the more we realized the lights on the horizon were no lights. They were fires. Part of the Central Colony was on fire, while the other half looked intact. I didn't know about the anatomy of the Central Colony, but I assumed the worst. If they had been attacked before us, it meant that the oxygen tanks had been destroyed, and that everyone had been killed. And I gave a quick glance to Mika, who had the same expression as me on his face. It's not like we could just go back from where we came from. By the time we reached the second colony, it would be well below freezing, very much well below freezing, and neither of us would be able to survive that. Mika probably knew what I was thinking. We can get in and isolate for the night. There doesn't seem to be any aliens left. There wasn't a single noise. Not that we would have heard much through our suit, but we could see from our distance that there was no signs of life. We could hope, maybe, that there were some survivors in the wing that hadn't been touched, but our hopes were thin. We finally reached the colony and entered through the exploded bay door. The rovers were all in shambles. Maybe the aliens started their invasion of Central by making sure they couldn't run away. And it looked like there wasn't a single human body in that room, so nobody had the time to try and escape. And I dreaded what we would find behind the sealed doors, though. We hid our rover amongst a bunch of destroyed ones. If there were survivors, we didn't want it stolen from us. After all, there would be no going back to Earth from Central now. The realization dampened on me, and I swallowed thickly as I got off the rover and followed Mika to the set of ultra-locked twin doors that led to the rest of the Central Colony living areas. It didn't take him long to find a way to open them by messing with the digital pad on the side. Once inside, We thanked our luck and realized there was oxygen. I still didn't take off my suit, but I did take off my helmet. The oxygen is probably from the backup system. We have probably about 12 to 18 hours, assuming this attack happened today. Again, answering a question I didn't ask. But 12 to 18 hours was more than enough time to sleep, gear up, and leave. As we enter the main hallway, the stench of blood fills my nose, and my brain refuses to acknowledge the scene of horror I'm forced to see. Left and right body parts are laying about, guts on display. The walls are dripping with blood and lacerations caused by, no doubt, the creature's claws. There are several heads piled up in a corner, which leads me to believe that not only the monsters kill mercilessly, but some of them even took sick pleasure into arranging a gory scene. They're having fun. Furthermore, each severed head missing its eyes and teeth. Their lids have been ripped off, and brain bits are dangling out of their sockets. Some skulls have been so damaged that they've been reshaped entirely. If it weren't for the facial features that remained untouched, it would be hard to call them human heads. I could have stayed there and watched in awe and shock the scene painted before me. But the sound of Mika emptying his stomach reminds me that we had things to do, and that there is nothing to be done for Central anymore. I suck in a breath and try to ignore the taste of copper in the back of my mouth. Shoving my arm around Mika's shoulders, I start walking down the hallway, hoping to find a room or somewhere clean enough for Mika to fall asleep for a few hours. We finally reach a crossroad. I decide to go south. Once I found a family unit that wasn't covered in gore and slashes, I let Mika sit down. I review our plan with him, and it's decided that we'll sleep in turn, just in case of a sudden attack. The one who's awake will gather supplies: fuel, food, oxygen, anything useful for our trip. I let him settle down first and start my exploration. After 2 hours of walking through the carnage, I've gathered all the oxygen tanks and food I could find at the crossroad. At this point, it's well past midnight and my adrenaline is crashing fast. Even I will need sleep eventually, but we'll sleep in 4-hour blocks, so I still have 2 hours to wait. And so, for another hour, I move what I scavenged to the rover. I then look around for a trailer, anything that would help us carry all of this. And we'll definitely need either a second rover to take all that stuff or a trailer. And unfortunately, everything around here has been destroyed. And then a brilliant idea struck me. I could use the carcass of a rover as a trailer. I spent another 2 hours dismantling a rover, so only the frame remains, and let Mika relax for 5 instead of 4. I start filling it up with oxygen tanks and food, and there's still enough space to carry maybe 4 or 5 liquid hydrogen tanks. And in the rover with us, we can take maybe 2 more. Mika said that we'd need at least 10 to get to Earth, so I hoped that we would find at least 3 back at our colony. I get back inside, take off my helmet again, and start walking toward where I left Mika. Unfortunately, before I reach the crossroad, a loud metallic noise coming from the north area sends chills down my spine. Hell, could I make it to Mika and rush back to the rover? Should we hide and wait? Could we? Or should I just try to run to the rover and try it myself outside in the temperatures of -100 or so? And hope for the best. My lizard brain wanted me to leave Mika and hope for the best in the outside world. It wanted me to survive no matter what the cost. However, I wouldn't make it to Earth without Mika and without Central. If I was ready to abandon him when we were back at our colony, it was because I thought I would receive help at Central and be sent to Earth. But now that Central is gone, Mika's the only one who could save us. and potentially Earth. I run as fast as I can to get to Mika, but he isn't in the room, and I try to think of where he could be, but I've never been to Central. The metallic noise resonates again through the atmosphere, but it's a little different than what I had heard back at our colony. Maybe we're not under attack. Only one way to figure it out. I run again out of the family unit and towards the noise, my heart ready to burst. Once I'm close enough to the source, I slow down my pace and walk along the walls. I peer into what looks like open air space and see Mika tinkering with something, and then another metallic noise follows. My eyes finally get a peek at what's causing the sound. It's a machine that's picking up liquid hydrogen tanks and depositing them on a platform with wheels. I could beat his ass for scaring me like that. I enter the room confidently and tell him he scared me shitless with that noise. He explains the machine's old and had been damaged, but he fixed it quickly. Unfortunately, it won't last long, so he's trying to pick as many of these tanks as he can. They're much bigger than I expected, and I doubt we can carry more than 5. I tell him about it, and he tells me not to worry. He found something better than the rover to take us back safely. It's time to go back, Mika tells me, and I nod. I can only hope these creatures have moved on to another colony and haven't destroyed our rocket.